Thump. Ouch. Did it again. Are you constantly bumping into things, dropping objects, or accidentally hitting your head? Well, you're not alone. You might just have dyspraxia. Hi, I'm Phil, a late diagnosed autistic older adult. In this video, I want to have a brief look at autistic dyspraxia, how that can affect autistic people of all ages, and maybe bust a myth or two about autistic coordination and sport. So firstly, what is dyspraxia? The name is derived from the Greek root of dux, meaning difficult or bad, and praxis, meaning movement. Dyspraxia, also known as Developmental Coordination Disorder, impacts motor skills and coordination. To be clear here, while the terms are often used interchangeably, DCD is the official diagnosis, not dyspraxia. People with dyspraxia may struggle to plan, organise and coordinate their movements. It can affect both fine motor skills like writing, but even gross motor skills like walking. It can produce inconsistent performance in activities. This can make it difficult to perform everyday tasks like doing up buttons, writing, catching a ball, riding a bike, or even driving. But can also cause difficulties in speech, apraxia. It is important to note that dyspraxia does not affect IQ. Because of the outward appearances that dyspraxic individuals may show, in other words, clumsiness or affected speech, other people may wrongly assume that dyspraxic individuals have lower intelligence, which is not linked. So what are some of the key signs someone may be dyspraxic? People with dyspraxia may have a history of clumsiness or unusual posture. They may have difficulty learning new motor skills or handling tools or equipment. This can extend to day-to-day items like cutlery or pens. May have issues with balance and fatigue quickly. May have inconsistent handwriting or pain while holding pens or pencils. This may also lead to problems like concentration and focus in learning environments. Dyspraxic people may also have difficulties with speech, such as stuttering, missing words, pronunciation, or even merging words together. May also have difficulty with spatial awareness and following spatial instructions, in other words, left and right. Movements may appear bigger than necessary and flow to other parts of the body. May have difficulty coordinating more than one limb at a time. May be slow to initiate movement. Is dyspraxia the same as just being a bit clumsy? Actually, dyspraxia is more than just being a bit clumsy. Any action requires three components: ideation, the idea of what to do; planning, how to do it; and doing the action. This is where your body actually coordinates the movement. Dyspraxia involves difficulty in at least two of these areas for each action. They are not just clumsy, but may have difficulty thinking about or planning the movement. This is where dyspraxia could be seen as a little bit different to Developmental Coordination Disorder. DCD may be seen to be just involved with the end movement, but dyspraxia is involved with the whole action. Also, as dyspraxia is more than just about motor skills, it can be associated with individuals' executive functioning or creating disorder in the mind. This also means cognition skills like organisation, planning, memory and inhibition may be affected. So, is dyspraxia just a symptom or a core trait of being autistic? Well, no, dyspraxia is a separate diagnosis to autism, but 80% of autistic people show signs of dyspraxia, but only 7% have an actual diagnosis. Also, 50% of people with dyspraxia are also dyslexic. And 50% of dyspraxic people also have ADHD. So we can see that there is not only a strong overlap with autism, but also with other neurodivergence. Across the wider population generally, about 5% of children are diagnosed with dyspraxia. Dyspraxia is a lifelong condition, so like autism, you're mostly born with it. Unlike autism though, it is possible to acquire dyspraxia through a brain injury. So do I have dyspraxia? Actually, I don't have a diagnosis of dyspraxia or developmental coordination disorder, but I do identify strongly with many of the traits listed above. As a child, I was slow at learning to do things like tie my own shoelaces. At school, I found it difficult to hold the pen and write in the same way as the other students. I always had a more claw grip and wrote backhanded, dragging my hand across the page. And this is still the case. This also means that I experience discomfort or even pain when writing. I can have great difficulty in forming letters appropriately on the page. This means my handwriting can be neat but barely legible, even if I'm taking care to write well. But if I'm in a hurry or tired, my handwriting can be completely unreadable, even to me. Typing on a computer is not much better. I often hit multiple keys at once, or the wrong letter entirely. This, combined with also being dyslexic, results in the need for constant revision and editing of what I've written, which makes the creation of any document or content slow and really tedious. Also, as a school-age student, I did have some difficulties early on with sports. But in the latter years of primary school, this did kind of change for me, as over a short period, I went to having very good hand-eye coordination, as it sort of clicked in my brain what to do. This may not be a typical dyspraxic experience, however. I'm not sure. As an adult, there are still many things I experience, however. I am constantly bumping into things. This is often the case when rounding a corner and I misjudge the space and either walk into the wall or bump my hip into the corner of a table. I also find I am often hitting my head as I misjudge that space around me. When working on a project with my hands, I also find that one hand might be very carefully holding an object and the other hand barges through and knocks or breaks the object. This is particularly true in the kitchen, where I may be carefully putting something on the stove, but as I let it go and start to move away, the other hand might clumsily swing through and spill the contents everywhere. Even actions like turning a tap off once a container has been carefully filled in the kitchen sink, where I might abruptly turn the tap the wrong way and water sprays everywhere instead of shutting off. It is also important to note, however, that not all coordination issues in autism are caused by dyspraxia. And sensory challenges may also cause motor coordination issues. An example here might be toe walking, where the autistic person has an unusual gait, whereby the heels mostly stay in the air. This can be the result of sensory differences, where the autistic person does not like the feeling of their whole foot touching the ground or inside of the shoes, or walking on cold floors or certain carpets, if in bare feet. I even find the feel of rough or uneven footpaths through my shoes challenging, as an example. The combination of autism and dyspraxia can have an impact both on the physical development of a child or young person, but also in maintaining physical fitness in adulthood. This can manifest in several ways. Someone who is autistic may find it challenging to play sport due to the social anxiety that is present when interacting with groups of people. If we then add the layer of dyspraxia, this can heighten these feelings of anxiety, as the dyspraxic autistic person may also be self-conscious about how their body moves and coordination issues, and how others may perceive that. A common outcome here is an avoidance of sport and even physical activity in general, leading to a sedentary lifestyle. This lack of movement puts the autistic person at risk of developing acute and chronic health conditions throughout their lives. So for all of us, it is important to maintain some level of physical activity, even if that's just going for a walk regularly. So, what are some strengths that dyspraxic people often exhibit? Experience in struggling with things like coordination can lead them to show empathy when they see others struggle. This innate empathy can also make dyspraxic people good leaders. Dyspraxic people often need to navigate a disorganised mind, and this leads them to develop skills in creating strategies to overcome problems in a structured way. Thus, problem solving and innovative thinking can be a real strength. So, can people with dyspraxia be good at sport? People with dyspraxia can be good at sport, but may need more practice than others. They may find the initial learning stage more difficult, but with more practice and coaching may succeed in mastering sports. Also, as autistic people, we may love a particular sport and hyper-focus on it, and put in the time to learn how to do it not just effectively, but in some cases do it at an elite level. For me, despite some coordination issues early on, I always had a keen interest in sport. I think this gave me a determination to succeed, and with time I learned to play many sports, and with autistic hyperfocus, even succeed quite highly in some. Golf became a hyperfocus for me as a teenager and still is. While I am not the greatest golfer in the world, I have learned through practice to play very well. Sailing also became a hyperfocus for me as an adult, and I was able, with much practice and training, to learn to do that well also, competing in many state and national level regattas. Can you do anything to reduce the effects of dyspraxia? There is no cure for dyspraxia, but occupational therapy can help develop skills for everyday living. Physiotherapy can also be useful to help develop muscle tone and strength. In fact, in researching this topic, I found a webpage aimed at educating physiotherapists on the specific needs of autistic people, which I thought was great. If you're interested, I'll leave a link to that in the description. So in conclusion, while autism and dyspraxia are separate conditions, both are neurodivergence, and there is a strong overlap in people with both conditions. The outcome is that many autistic people experience clumsiness in day-to-day actions. For many autistic people, the combination of coordination and social challenges may lead to an avoidance of structured sport and even physical activity in general, putting them at risk of future health complications. But autistic people with dyspraxia, with the appropriate support, can play sport if that is what they want to do, and may even develop a keen interest and learn to excel amongst their peers. Okay, so that's it for my brief dive into autistic dyspraxia. If you experience autistic dyspraxia or clumsiness more generally, feel free to share your experience over in the comments. And please feel free to like, subscribe and share for more lived autistic experiences. And as you traverse the world's pathways, mind out for those corners. Bye for now.